My son wrote, "Don't come to our house for Christmas. Maria needs space from you." I just smiled. He didn't know that house had belonged to me all along. I sent 3 text messages, and in less than an hour, my son was standing outside my door, his face pale with panic. "I'm Bernice Hawthorne, and I'm glad you're here with me. Please stay till the end of my story and let me know which city you're listening from. That way I can see how far my truth has traveled." 33 years. That's how long I'd been in this country. 33 years since I'd stepped off that plane with $200 in my pocket and a dictionary I could barely read. 33 years of working 2 jobs, assembly line during the day, cleaning hotel rooms at night, saving every single penny until I could finally buy my own house. A small ranch-style place with a garden out back. Nothing fancy, but it was mine. I'd raised Adrian there. Just the 2 of us after his father left when Adrian was 3. I taught him to ride the bike in that driveway. We planted tomatoes every spring in that garden. On winter nights, we'd sit by the fireplace, and I'd help him with his homework, even though half the time his English was better than mine. That house represented everything I'd built, everything I'd survived. 6 years ago, when Adrian turned 30 and married Mireya Morrison, I thought I was making the most generous gesture a mother could make. They were young, in love, trying to start their lives together. Rent in our city had become impossible. Buying a house seemed like an impossible dream for them, so I offered to help. I put down $80,000, my entire savings, money I'd scraped together over decades, as a down payment on a beautiful 3-bedroom house in a nice neighborhood. White picket fence, big backyard, good schools nearby for the grandchildren I hoped would come someday. "We'll put it in your name temporarily," I told Adrian as we sat at the closing table, "just until you build up your credit score. Then we can transfer it over." Adrian had hugged me so tight that day. "Mom, I don't know how to thank you. This is incredible." Mireya had kissed my cheek, her eyes sparkling. "Thank you, Mom. We're so grateful. You're the most generous person I've ever met." Mom. She'd called me Mom. I'd driven home that evening feeling like I'd done something right, like all those years of sacrifice had been worth it. I was securing my son's future. I was giving him the stability I'd fought so hard to achieve. "Don't worry about the paperwork," I'd said. "We're family." I should have worried about the paperwork. The first year was perfect, like something out of a magazine. Every Sunday, Adrian would call. Not a quick "hey mom" call, real conversations. 40 minutes, sometimes an hour. He'd tell me about his week at the engineering firm, about the projects he was working on. Mireya would get on the phone too, chattering about her marketing job, about the new curtains they'd hung, about wanting to have me over for dinner. And those dinners. Oh, those dinners were lovely. Mireya would cook. She was a good cook, I'll give her that. And the 3 of us would sit around their dining table, laughing and talking. She'd ask me about my garden, about the book club Dorothy and I had started. She'd bring out photo albums and ask me to tell stories about Adrian's childhood. "Tell me about the time he tried to build a tree house," she'd say, leaning forward with genuine interest. Adrian would groan. "Mom, please don't." But I'd tell the story anyway. How he'd been 9 years old and so determined. How he'd used every nail in my toolbox and somehow ended up with a platform that tilted at a 45-degree angle. We'd all laugh. Mireya would squeeze Adrian's hand. "Your mom is amazing," she'd say. "The way she raised you all by herself." I felt welcomed, loved, like I'd gained a daughter, not just a daughter-in-law. I should have known it was too good to last. The changes started small, so small I told myself I was imagining things. Around month 18, Adrian's Sunday calls became every other Sunday calls, then every 3 weeks. "Sorry, Mom," he'd say when I mentioned it. "Work's been crazy. You know how it is." I did know how it was, so I didn't push. When I'd suggest visiting, "Maybe I could come by Saturday. I'll bring that casserole you love," there was always a reason why it wasn't a good time. Mireya's not feeling great. We have plans with her parents. The house is kind of a mess right now. Still, I didn't want to be that mother-in-law, the one who couldn't take a hint, the one who hovered. So I gave them space. By month 30, something had shifted in a way I couldn't ignore anymore. Last Thanksgiving. That's when I really saw it. I'd called 2 weeks in advance. "Can I come for Thanksgiving? I'll bring the pumpkin pie. The one Adrian loves." There'd been a pause. Then Mireya's voice, careful. "Of course, Bernice. Come around too?" I'd arrived at 1:55, pie still warm in my hands. I'd knocked. When had I started knocking instead of just walking in? And waited. Mireya opened the door. She was wearing a beautiful cream sweater, her dark hair perfectly styled. But her smile didn't reach her eyes. "Oh," she'd said, as if she'd forgotten I was coming. "You're here?" "I confirmed 3 times this week," I'd said, holding up the pie like an offering. "Right, of course. Come in." The house looked beautiful. She'd clearly put effort into it. Autumn decorations, a gorgeous table setting, the smell of roasting turkey filling the air. But the warmth I'd felt during those first-year dinners was gone. Throughout the meal, Mireya made little comments. Small digs, each one delivered with a light laugh, as if she were joking. Adrian never learned to close cabinet doors properly. I guess some mothers don't teach that. "Pass the salt, please, Bernice. Though I suppose some people prefer food with no seasoning at all." "Adrian, honey, elbows off the table. I know you didn't learn proper table manners growing up, but we have standards now." Each comment was like a small slap. Not hard enough to make a scene about. But they stung. What hurt more was Adrian's silence. My son, the boy who'd once gotten suspended from school for punching a kid who'd made fun of my accent, sat there pushing green beans around his plate, saying nothing. Not one word in my defense. When I left that night, Mireya hugged me at the door. A perfunctory hug, the kind you give someone you're obligated to be nice to. "Thanks for coming, Bernice," she'd said. Not Mom, Bernice. I'd driven home with that pumpkin pie still sitting on their counter, untouched. After Thanksgiving, things got worse. I'd call Adrian's cell phone and Mireya would answer. "He's busy," she'd say, her voice always pleasant but with an edge underneath. "I'll tell him you called." He never called back. When I did manage to reach him, our conversations felt strained. Adrian spoke in short sentences, his voice tight. "How are you, honey?" "Fine. How's work?" "Good. Are you okay? You sound—" "I'm fine, Mom. Just busy. I should go." It felt like talking to a stranger. 3 months ago, I'd made a mistake. I'd dropped by unannounced. I know, I shouldn't have. But I'd found a box of Adrian's childhood photos while cleaning my attic. Pictures from his first day of kindergarten, his 8th birthday party, the day he graduated high school. I thought he'd want them. I'd pulled up to the house around 11 on a Saturday morning. Through the living room window, I could see them. Adrian was on the couch, his feet propped up, laughing at something on TV. Mireya was beside him, her hand on his arm. They looked relaxed, happy. They looked like a couple enjoying their Saturday morning. Then Mireya glanced toward the window and saw my car. I watched her face change. Watched her lean over and whisper something to Adrian. Watched his expression shift from relaxed to tense in an instant. By the time they opened the door, all that warmth I'd glimpsed through the window had vanished completely. "We weren't expecting you," Mireya said. She didn't invite me in, just stood there in the doorway, Adrian slightly behind her. "I'm sorry," I'd said, holding up the box of photos. "I just wanted to give Adrian these. I found them while cleaning and thought, you can't just show up whenever you want." Mireya's voice was sharp now, no pretense of politeness. "We have boundaries, Bernice." "Boundaries?" The word felt like a slap. "Since when does a mother need permission to see her son?" "Since we got married and started our own life." She'd crossed her arms. "We're not children. We're adults with our own household and we need privacy." I'd looked past her to Adrian. "Honey?" He'd opened his mouth, closed it, looked at Mireya, then back at me. "Mom, maybe you should call next time." I'd left the box of photos on their doorstep and driven home in a daze. That was 3 months ago. I hadn't been back since. Last month, I'd called about Christmas. I'd been planning it for weeks. A small gathering, just the 3 of us. I'd make my special roast, the one Adrian had requested every year since he was 10. We'd exchange gifts. Maybe watch a Christmas movie together, like we used to. Mireya had answered Adrian's phone. "Hi, Mireya," I'd said, trying to keep my voice cheerful. "I wanted to talk about Christmas plans. I was thinking We're doing our own thing this year," she'd interrupted. Her voice was flat, final. "Just the two of us. But it's Christmas. Things change, Bernice." I could almost hear her shrug. "It's important for our marriage. You understand? We always spend Christmas together." "Well, we won't be this year. I have to go." She'd hung up. I'd sat there on my couch for an hour after that call, phone still in my hand. At 65 years old, I'd survived so much: poverty, an abusive first marriage, cancer 5 years ago. I'd gone through chemo alone because I hadn't wanted to burden Adrian while he was planning his wedding. I'd built a life from nothing in a country where I'd arrived not speaking the language. But this? My own son choosing his wife over me for Christmas, in a house I'd paid for? This broke something inside me I didn't know could break. I'd actually cried that night. Real tears, the kind I hadn't shed in years. I'd curled up on my couch with one of Adrian's baby photos, and I'd wept. Then came December 23rd. I'd been wrapping presents for Adrian despite everything. I couldn't help myself. A new watch he'd been wanting. A first edition book by his favorite author I'd found on eBay. Even a gift for Mireya, a cashmere scarf, cream-colored, elegant. I'd been telling myself that maybe he'd change his mind. Maybe he'd show up on Christmas Eve, apologetic, ready to reconcile. Maybe Mireya would realize how hurtful she'd been. My phone had buzzed. A text message from Adrian. My heart had leaped. This was it. He was calling to apologize, to tell me to come after all, to say he missed me. I'd opened the message. "Don't come to our house for Christmas. Mireya doesn't want you here. Respect our decision." I'd read it 3 times. Not "we decided," not "we need some space," not even "I'm sorry." Mireya doesn't want you here. My son hadn't even pretended this was his choice. He'd thrown his own mother away because his wife demanded it. I'd sat there for a long moment, that text message glowing on my screen. Then something happened. Something I didn't expect. I didn't cry this time. Instead, something inside me crystallized, hardened, became sharp and clear and cold. I smiled. Actually smiled. Because here's what Adrian and Mireya had forgotten. I'd walked over to my filing cabinet, the old metal one I'd bought at a garage sale 20 years ago, pulled open the bottom drawer, reached past old tax returns and birth certificates until I found the manila folder. I'd pulled out the documents inside: house deed, mortgage papers, property tax records, every single one with the same name at the top. Bernice Hawthorne. Not Adrian Hawthorne, not Mireya Hawthorne. Me. The house they thought was theirs, the house Mireya clearly believed she had the right to ban me from, legally belonged to me. Completely, totally, absolutely. In 6 years, they'd never contributed a single penny to the down payment. Not $1 toward the mortgage. Not a cent for property taxes. I'd covered everything. "We'll put it in your name temporarily," I'd said. Temporarily had turned into 6 years, and I'd never transferred that deed. I'd opened my phone, pulled up the text from Adrian, and I'd started typing. 3 sentences. Simple, direct, devastating. Effective immediately. I'm serving you a 30-day eviction notice. The house at 2847 Maple Grove Drive is my property, legally and completely. You have until January 22nd to vacate. My finger had hovered over the send button for just a moment. Then I'd pressed it, and I'd waited. 53 minutes. That's how long it took. 53 minutes before I heard a car screech into my driveway, tires squealing on the pavement. I'd walked to my living room window and pulled the curtain back slightly. Adrian was practically falling out of his car, his face flushed red. He'd slammed the door so hard I'd heard it from inside my house. Then he'd run, actually run, up my front walkway. The pounding on my door started before I could even take a breath. "Mom! Mom! Open the door!" I'd taken my time, smoothed down my cardigan, checked my reflection in the hallway mirror, let him knock 3 more times, each one more frantic than the last. Then I'd walked to the door and turned the lock. Adrian had practically burst inside, wild-eyed and breathing hard. "Mom, what the hell?" His voice was shaking. You can't just..." "Can't what, Adrian?" I'd kept my voice calm, almost pleasant. "Can't send a text message to my own son? You said you're evicting us." He'd run his hands through his hair, the way he used to when he was stressed about exams in college. "You said we have 30 days to get out. You can't do that." "Actually, I can." I'd walked past him into the kitchen, poured myself a cup of tea. My hands were steady, even though my heart was hammering. 30 days is what the law requires in this state for eviction. I looked it up. "This isn't funny. Would you like some tea, dear?" "This isn't..." He'd followed me into the kitchen, his voice cracking now. "That's our home, Mom. We've lived there for 6 years. You can't just kick us out because of one text message." I'd turned to face him then, really looked at him. When had my son become this stranger? This man who'd stood by silently while his wife insulted me? This person who'd sent me a text message banning me from a house I owned? "One text message?" I'd repeated softly. "Is that what you think this is about?" He'd faltered. Maria she thought..." I'd held up my hand. "Don't blame her for words that came from your phone, Adrian. You're 36 years old. You made a choice." "Mom, please." The anger had deflated into desperation. "We can't afford to move right now. Maria just quit her job to start her online business, and rent anywhere else is..." "You should have thought about that," I'd said quietly, "before you told me not to come to my house for Christmas." The words had hung between us. I'd watched understanding dawn on his face. The house. He'd actually forgotten. Or maybe Maria had made him forget. How many times had she referred to it as our house until he'd believed it? "It was a mistake," he'd said quietly. "I shouldn't have sent that text. But eviction? That's extreme, Mom." Was it? I'd thought about the past year, the canceled visits, the cold shoulders, the way Maria had systematically cut me out of my son's life, piece by piece, while I'd stood by and let it happen because I hadn't wanted to be the difficult mother-in-law. I'd thought about Thanksgiving, sitting at their table while Maria insulted me with a smile on her face. I'd thought about calling Adrian's phone and hearing Maria's voice instead. Every single time. I'd thought about being erased from my own son's life while living in a house I'd provided for them. "What's extreme," I'd said, "is being told I'm not welcome in a house I own. What's extreme is my son choosing to hurt me because his wife demands it. What's extreme is realizing I raised someone who could discard me so easily." "I'm not discarding you." "Then why did you send that text, Adrian?" My voice had broken despite myself. "Why didn't you stand up to her? Even once. Just once." He'd opened his mouth, closed it, looked away. And there it was. The truth we both knew, but he couldn't say. He was afraid of Maria, afraid of her moods, her anger, her manipulation. He'd chosen the path of least resistance. And I'd been the sacrifice. "I need you to leave now," I'd said quietly. "Mom, 30 days, Adrian. The notice is official. You have 30 days to find somewhere else to live." After he'd left, I'd sat in my kitchen, shaking. What had I done? I'd just evicted my own son, my only child, the boy I'd raised alone after his father abandoned us, the man I'd helped, supported, loved unconditionally for 36 years. But as I'd sat there, something else had risen up through the fear, something cold and hard and certain. I'd pulled out my laptop, started making lists. First, documentation. I'd gone to my filing cabinet and pulled out everything. House deed, mortgage papers, every payment record. My name, all my name. Adrian and Maria had contributed nothing. Second, legal standing. I'd researched tenant laws, eviction procedures, property rights. I'd taken notes in my careful handwriting, the way I'd learned in my first job in America, working as a clerk while studying English at night. Third, I'd needed to prepare for Maria's next move, because there would be a next move. I knew her type now. She wouldn't accept this quietly. She'd fight. She'd manipulate. She'd try to turn Adrian against me even more completely. But this time, I wouldn't be unprepared. This time, I would protect what was mine. The next morning, I drove to the law office of Patricia Henderson. I'd met Patricia 2 years ago when I'd updated my will after beating cancer. She was 58, with steel gray hair she wore in a neat bun and sharp eyes that missed nothing. Exactly the kind of person I needed right now. Her office was in a modest building downtown, 3rd floor. The waiting room smelled like coffee and old books. When her secretary led me in, Patricia looked up from her desk and smiled. "Bernice, good to see you." Then she saw my face. "What's wrong?" I slid the eviction notice across her desk. "I need to make sure this is legally airtight." Patricia put on her reading glasses and studied the document carefully. Her expression stayed neutral, professional. After a long moment, she looked up. "This is your son and daughter-in-law?" "Yes." "And they've been living there rent-free for 6 years?" "Yes. I covered the down payment. The house is entirely in my name. They've never paid a dime toward the mortgage or property taxes." Patricia leaned back in her chair, fingers steepled under her chin. "Then legally, you're well within your rights. The 30-day notice is proper. Everything here is by the book." I felt some of the tension leave my shoulders. "Good. But Bernice," she paused, choosing her words carefully. "Are you sure about this? Family disputes can get very ugly very quickly. Emotions run high. People say and do things they can't take back." "It's already ugly," I said quietly. "I'm just making it official." Patricia studied me for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly. "All right, I'll file the eviction notice with the court today. You should also consider getting a formal property appraisal and document any damage to the house, any unauthorized modifications. If they've made changes without permits, you'll want records." I hadn't thought of that. "Can you recommend someone?" She wrote down a name and number on her notepad, tore off the page. "Bill Morrison. He's thorough and fast. Tell him I sent you." As I stood to leave, Patricia touched my arm. "Bernice, one more thing. Keep records of everything from this point forward. Every text message, every phone call, every interaction. If this goes to court, you'll want documentation." "You think it'll go to court?" "I think your daughter-in-law won't go quietly." Patricia's expression was grim. "And in my experience, the people who fight the hardest usually have the most to hide." That afternoon, my phone buzzed. A text from Adrian. "We need to talk, please." I stared at it for a long moment. Then I turned off my phone. I wasn't ready. Not yet. Instead, I called Bill Morrison. He could meet me at the house tomorrow at 10 while Adrian and Maria were at work. I still had my spare key. It was my house after all. I had every legal right to inspect it. That night I barely slept. I kept replaying Patricia's words. The people who fight the hardest usually have the most to hide. What was Maria hiding? The next day I arrived at 2847 Maple Grove Drive at 9:55 a.m. I'd texted Adrian that morning, just a brief message. "Property inspection at 10 a.m. This is my legal right as the owner." He hadn't responded. Bill Morrison pulled up in a white truck at exactly 10 o'clock. He was a broad-shouldered man in his 50s, wearing a flannel shirt and carrying a clipboard and a toolbox. "Mrs. Hawthorne?" "Bernice, please." "Bill Morrison." We shook hands. "Patricia says you need a thorough inspection. Concerns about unauthorized modifications?" "I'm not sure what I'm going to find," I admitted, unlocking the front door. "But I have a feeling it won't be good." The house looked different than I remembered. The last time I'd been inside was... God, had it really been over a year ago? Before Maria had started making excuses about why I couldn't visit. The living room was beautiful, I had to admit. Hardwood floors, modern furniture, large windows letting in plenty of light. Everything looked clean and expensive, but Bill wasn't looking at the furniture. He was looking at the walls. "Mrs. Hawthorne, Bernie, when was this house built?" 1987. He walked to where the living room opened into the dining area, ran his hand along the ceiling, knocked on the wall in several places. His frown deepened. "These walls," he said, pointing. "They were load-bearing." "Were?" "Someone removed them. Opened up the whole space, made it one big room instead of two smaller ones." He pulled out his phone, started taking pictures. "Very modern look. Very popular renovation. But this?" He knocked again, and I could hear the hollow sound. "This was done without permits. I can tell by the way they did it. No proper support beams, no engineered headers. This is a serious code violation." My stomach dropped. "How serious?" "Serious enough that if the city finds out, they could make you tear it all down and rebuild it properly. We're talking tens of thousands of dollars." He was already making notes on his clipboard. "Did you authorize this work?" "No, I had no idea." I remembered vaguely Michael mentioning a renovation last year. Maria had been so excited about it on one of those increasingly rare phone calls. "We're opening up the space, making it more modern," she'd said. I thought she meant painting and decorating, not demolishing walls. "There's more," Bill said, his voice grim. "Follow me." He led me to the master bathroom. It looked gorgeous. New tile, a rainfall shower head, modern fixtures. Everything was white and chrome and pristine. Bill opened the cabinet under the sink, pulled out a flashlight, shone it behind the pipes. "See this discoloration?" I looked. The wood was dark, almost black in places. "Water damage. And see here?" He pointed to the tile. "This is high-end Italian tile. Beautiful. But it's installed wrong. No proper waterproofing membrane. Water's been seeping behind it probably since they installed it." He tapped the wall, and I heard that same hollow sound. "I'd bet money there's mold back there. This whole bathroom needs to be torn out and redone properly." "How much?" My voice sounded small. "For the bathroom alone? 15 to 20,000. Maybe more if the mold is extensive." He straightened up. "And that's just what I can see without opening walls. Who knows what else they've done?" We went through the rest of the house. Bill found more issues. The kitchen had new cabinets, installed without proper permits. The master bedroom had an added closet that encroached on what should have been fire safety clearance. The back deck they'd built? Not up to code for railing height. After an hour, Bill handed me his preliminary notes. "I'll have a full written report for you by Friday. But Mrs. Hawthorne, Bernice, you need to know. Between the unpermitted work and the water damage, you're looking at somewhere between $40,000 and $50,000 to fix this properly." $40,000 to $50,000. The house I'd bought to secure my son's future. The house I'd put my entire life savings into. They'd been destroying it. After Bill left, I sat in my car in the driveway of that house for a long time. My hands were gripping the steering wheel so tight, my knuckles were white. They'd gutted it, modified it, damaged it, all without asking me, without permission, without even telling me the truth about what they were doing. And now they wanted to keep it? Wanted to ban me from it? My house. My investment. My future security. My phone buzzed. I'd turned it back on during the drive over. 3 missed calls from Adrian, 5 from a number I didn't recognize, and 1 voicemail. I pressed play. Maria's voice, cold and clipped. "Bernice, we received your little inspection notice. How dare you invade our privacy like that? You had no right to go through our house while we weren't there. This is harassment. If you don't drop this eviction immediately, we'll have no choice but to take legal action. Call me back." I saved the voicemail. Patricia had said to document everything. Then I drove home. That evening, my phone rang. Not a number I recognized, but I answered anyway. "Hello?" "Bernice," Maria's voice, but different now. Not cold, almost sweet. "I'm glad you picked up. I was worried you were avoiding me." "What do you want, Maria?" I wanted to apologize. A pause. I was harsh in that voicemail. We were shocked, coming home and finding out you'd been in our house. My house. A beat of silence. Then, "Right, your house. Legally. I understand that now." Her voice was honey smooth. "Bernice, I think we've all gotten off on the wrong foot here. Things have been said, feelings have been hurt. But we're family, aren't we? Can we talk? Just you and me? Maybe coffee this week?" I thought about Bill's report, the destroyed walls, the water damage, the $40,000 to $50,000 in repairs. I don't think that's a good idea. Please, Bernice, I know I've made mistakes. I want to make this right. Adrian he's devastated. He loves you so much, and I care about him, which means I care about fixing this relationship with you. It sounded sincere. It really did. But I remembered Thanksgiving, the way she'd smiled while insulting me, the way she'd answered Adrian's phone and made sure he never called back. The eviction stands, I said. Bernice, 26 days left, Maria. I suggest you start looking for a new place. I hung up. My hands were shaking. But I'd done it. I'd held firm. For the first time in a year, I'd refused to be manipulated. The next 3 days were some of the hardest of my life. I was exhausted. Physically, emotionally, spiritually. The confrontation with Maria, the inspection report, the constant anxiety about what would happen next. It all weighed on me like a physical thing. I turned off my phone again. Didn't check email, didn't look at social media. I just needed silence. Peace. Time to breathe and remember why I was doing this. I spent those days in my garden, the one I'd cultivated for 15 years since I'd bought this house. I pruned my roses. They were dormant now in December, but they still needed care. I checked on my winter vegetables, the kale and Brussels sprouts that could handle the cold. I sat in the pale winter sunlight and let the quiet restore me. On the third day, my neighbor Dorothy Campbell came over with a casserole dish wrapped in aluminum foil. Dorothy was 70, a widow who'd lived next door for 12 years. She'd been there when I went through cancer treatment, driving me to appointments when I was too sick from chemo to drive myself. "Haven't seen you in a few days," she said gently, setting the casserole on my kitchen counter. "Are you all right, honey?" I'd almost lied, almost said everything was fine, but Dorothy had earned the truth. "I'm having trouble with Adrian and Mireya." "I know." She pulled out a chair and sat down at my kitchen table. "Mireya posted something online. A lot of people are talking." My stomach dropped. "What did she say?" Dorothy's expression was kind but sad. "That you're evicting them right before Christmas, that you're being cruel and vindictive, that they don't understand why you're doing this." I closed my eyes. Of course she had. Patricia had warned me this would happen. "But Bernice," Dorothy continued, reaching across the table to take my hand, "I also know you. I've known you for 12 years, and I know you wouldn't do something like this without a very good reason." Tears pricked my eyes. I hadn't cried since that night I'd sent the eviction notice. But Dorothy's simple faith in me broke something open. "She's turned him against me, Dorothy. My own son. And they damaged my house, the one I bought for them. Removed walls without permits, caused water damage. Tens of thousands of dollars in repairs." Dorothy's eyes widened. "Oh, honey. I don't know if I'm doing the right thing." The words tumbled out. "He's my son, my only child. What if I lose him forever? What if—" "Then you stand your ground," Dorothy said firmly. "You hear me? That girl has been isolating Adrian from you for years now. I've seen it happening. She answers his phone, makes excuses when you want to visit. That's not normal, Bernice. That's control. But evicting them is you finally standing up for yourself. And honey, it's about time. That simple validation, that belief in me, was like water in a desert. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't cruel. I was protecting myself." The next morning, I woke up feeling stronger. Dorothy's words had given me something I'd been missing. Validation. I turned my phone back on. 23 missed calls. 15 from Adrian, 8 from numbers I didn't recognize. Dozens of text messages. I started reading through them carefully. Most were from Adrian. "Please call me. We need to fix this." "Mom, I'm begging you. I can't believe you're really doing this." But 3 messages stood out. They were from Mireya's phone, but the tone was completely different. Soft, conciliatory, almost vulnerable. "Helen, this is Mireya. I think we got off on the wrong foot. Can we talk, just you and me? I know I've made mistakes. I'd like to apologize properly. Coffee this week? My treat. I care about Adrian. I know you do too. Let's work this out for his sake, please. I stared at those messages for a long time. Was this genuine or another manipulation? I decided to wait, to see what happened next. An hour later, my doorbell rang. I looked through the peephole. Mireya stood on my porch, alone. She was dressed simply, jeans, a soft blue sweater, minimal makeup. Her dark hair was pulled back in a ponytail. Her eyes were red, as if she'd been crying. She looked small, vulnerable, nothing like the cold, controlled woman who'd answered Adrian's phone all those times. Against my better judgment, against every instinct screaming at me not to, I opened the door. I know you don't want to see me, she said quietly. But please, just give me 5 minutes. I stepped aside, let her in. She sat on my couch, hands folded in her lap. For a moment, she just sat there, not speaking. Then she looked up at me. I've been awful to you, she began. I know that now. I think I was jealous of your relationship with Adrian, of how much he loves you. I felt like I had to compete for his attention, and I handled it terribly. The apology sounded rehearsed, but there were tears in her eyes now, real tears sliding down her cheeks. I never meant for things to get this bad, she continued. The text about Christmas, that was me being petty and cruel. Adrian didn't even want to send it. I made him do it. And I'm so sorry. I said nothing, just watched her carefully. I know we messed up the house renovations, she went on. We should have asked you first. We should have gotten permits. We were just so excited about making it our own, you know? Making it feel like ours. And we made mistakes. Big mistakes. She looked up at me, tears streaming down her face now. Please don't do this. Please don't evict us. We'll fix everything. We'll get the permits retroactively. We'll pay for all the repairs. Every penny. Just please don't take our home away. Our home. There it was again. I'll do anything, she whispered. I'll apologize publicly. I'll delete all my social media posts. I'll sign something saying I was wrong, that you're a wonderful mother-in-law. Whatever you want, just please. I felt something cold settle in my chest. This wasn't remorse. This was desperation. She wasn't sorry for hurting me. She was sorry she was losing the house. Do you love my son, Mireya? She blinked, startled by the question. Of course I do. Then why did you spend the last year isolating him from his mother? I leaned forward. Why did you intercept my calls? Why did you make him feel guilty for wanting to see me? I didn't. Don't lie to me. Not now. She looked away. You want me to drop the eviction? I said quietly. Fine. Here's what I need. I need you to genuinely respect me, to stop treating me like a threat, to let Adrian have a relationship with his mother without making him feel guilty about it. Her face shifted. Just for a second. Just a flash. But I saw it. Anger. Resistance. The refusal to give up that control. I can do that, she said, but her voice was tight, forced. No, I said, standing up. You can't, because you don't see me as a person, Mireya. You see me as competition, as an obstacle, and nothing I do will ever change that. That's not true. The eviction stands. You have 23 days left. Her tears vanished instantly. The mask dropped completely. You're going to regret this, old woman. Her voice was ice now, pure venom. Adrian will never forgive you. Never. You'll spend the rest of your life alone, wondering why your son doesn't call, why he doesn't visit, why you never meet your grandchildren. You'll die alone in this house, and it'll be your own fault. Get out of my house. She stood, grabbed her purse. At my door, she turned back. I tried to be nice, she hissed. I tried to make peace. But you're too bitter and stubborn to accept an olive branch. Remember that. When you're sitting here alone at Christmas, when Adrian won't answer your calls, when you have no one, remember that you chose this. She slammed the door so hard my windows rattled. I stood in my living room, heart pounding, hands shaking. but I felt clear, certain. Mireya had just shown me exactly who she was. The tears, the apology, the vulnerability, all of it was performance, manipulation, and I'd almost fallen for it. That afternoon, I called Patricia Henderson. The daughter-in-law just came to my house and tried to manipulate me into dropping the eviction, I told her. Not surprising. How did you respond? I said no. Good. I could hear the approval in Patricia's voice. Bernice, I want you to know something. I've been doing this for 25 years. I've seen a lot of family property disputes. And in my experience, the people who fight the hardest, the ones who use tears and threats and manipulation, are usually the ones who have the most to hide. What do you mean? I think you should hire a private investigator, Patricia said. Look into Mireya's background, her finances, her employment history, because something tells me there's more going on here than just family drama. A private investigator? That seemed extreme. But then again, a month ago, evicting my son had seemed extreme too. Send me a referral, I said. Patricia gave me a name, Sharon Rivera, a private investigator she'd worked with before. Thorough, discreet, reasonable rates. I called Sharon that evening. She could meet me tomorrow. Sharon Rivera came to my house the next morning at 9 o'clock sharp. She was 42, with short dark hair and sharp, intelligent eyes. She wore black slacks and a burgundy blazer and carried a leather messenger bag. Patricia Henderson speaks highly of you, she said, setting up her laptop at my kitchen table. She speaks highly of you, too. Sharon smiled. Why don't you tell me what's going on? I explained everything. The house, the eviction, Mireya's behavior over the past year, the isolation, the manipulation, the sudden personality shifts. Sharon took notes on her laptop. Do you know Mireya's maiden name? Morrison. Mireya Morrison. Previous employment? I realized I knew almost nothing about Mireya's past. She worked at some marketing firm when she met Adrian. I can't remember the name. She quit last month to start her own online business, but I never heard details about what that business actually was. Sharon's fingers were already flying across her keyboard. What about where she grew up? Family background? I don't know. Sharon looked up. In 6 years, your son never told you about his wife's background? We talked about it at first, but the details are fuzzy now. She said her parents lived out of state. Colorado, maybe? Or Utah? I felt foolish. How had I not paid more attention? Don't worry, Sharon said kindly. That's what I'm here for. Give me a week. I'll find out what I can. 4 days later, on a Saturday morning, my doorbell rang at 9 a.m. I wasn't expecting anyone. I looked through the peephole, and my stomach dropped. Adrian and Mireya. Together. But something was different this time. Their entire demeanor had changed. Adrian looked determined, jaw set. Mireya had a folder in her hands and a smile on her face. Warm, genuine, the kind she used to give me in the first year of their marriage. I opened the door. Mom, Adrian said, we want to apologize. Properly this time. Can we come in? Something felt wrong, but I stepped aside. They sat together on my couch, close, presenting a united front. Mireya opened her folder, slid papers across my coffee table. We've been thinking about everything you said, she began, her voice honey-sweet. And you're absolutely right. We should have gotten permits for the renovations. We should have communicated better. We should have treated you with more respect. I looked at the papers. Contractor estimates. We've contacted 3 contractors, Mireya continued. These are estimates for fixing everything. The walls, the water damage, getting the permits retroactively. We're prepared to pay for all of it. The estimates totaled $47,000. With what money? I asked quietly. Adrian cleared his throat. I've been approved for a personal loan. It's all arranged. We can start the repairs next month. A loan. I looked at my son. You're going to go into debt to fix damage you caused to my house. It's the right thing to do, he said. And Mom, we want to buy the house from you. Officially. We'll get a mortgage. pay you fair market value, make everything legal and proper. You'll get your money back, plus appreciation. Everyone wins. I should have felt relief. This was a solution, a way to end the conflict, keep my son in my life, and get compensated for the property. But something in Mireya's eyes made me pause, a glint of triumph, of certainty that she'd won. "That's very generous," I said slowly, "but the eviction stands." Mireya's smile tightened, just slightly. "Bernice, we're trying to make this right. We're offering you everything you asked for." I didn't ask for money. I asked for respect. "And we're giving you that." Her voice rose slightly before she caught herself. "We're here, aren't we? Apologizing, offering to fix everything. What more do you want?" "I want you to mean it." Silence. Michael leaned forward. "Mom, please. This is our olive branch, our way of showing you we're serious about changing. But we need you to meet us halfway. Drop the eviction. Let us make the repairs. Let us buy the house. And we can all move forward as one happy family." "As one happy family," I repeated quietly. "Yes," Mireya said quickly, too quickly. I stood up, walked to my window, looked out at my garden. "If I drop the eviction," I said quietly, not turning around, "what changes? Really? You'll still think of it as your house. You'll still resent me for asserting my ownership. And eventually we'll be right back here, with you treating me like an inconvenience and me wondering where my son went." "That's not fair," Adrian started. "Isn't it?" I turned to face them. "Mireya, be honest. If I drop this eviction, will you genuinely welcome me into your lives? Will you stop intercepting Adrian's calls? Will you invite me for Christmas next year without me having to beg?" She opened her mouth, closed it. She couldn't even say yes. "You can't even say it," I said softly, "because you know it's not true." "You're asking me to pretend," Mireya exploded, standing up. "You want me to pretend that everything is fine, that we're best friends, that I enjoy having my mother-in-law hovering over every aspect of our lives." There it was, the truth. "I'm not hovering," I said calmly. "I'm existing, and you can't even tolerate that." Adrian stood too, his face anguished. "Mom, she didn't mean—" "Yes, she did." I looked at my son. "She meant every word. And you know it." Mireya grabbed her folder. Her face was flushed with rage now, all pretense gone. "We tried to be reasonable," she snapped. "We tried to compromise. But you're just a bitter, lonely old woman who can't stand that your son has a wife now, that he chose someone else. I don't mind that he chose you, Mireya. I mind that choosing you meant erasing me. We're done here." She turned to Adrian. "Come on, let's go." But Adrian didn't move. He stood there, looking between us, his face torn. "Michael," Mireya said sharply, "let's go." "Maybe," Adrian started. His voice was quiet, uncertain. "Maybe Mom has a point." "Are you serious right now?" Mireya's voice turned to ice. "After everything I've done for you, after I've stood by you, supported you, built a life with you, you're going to side with her?" The ultimatum was clear, crystal clear. Choose me or choose your mother. I watched my son's face, watched him struggle, watched him make his choice. "We should go," he said quietly. They left. I stood in my empty living room, shaking. Not from fear, not from sadness, from rage. The sheer audacity of their manipulation. Coming here, pretending to make peace, offering to fix things, all while changing nothing about their behavior. It was all a trap, a way to get me to drop the eviction while they maintained control. But I'd seen through it, and now I was more certain than ever. I was doing the right thing. Sharon Rivera called me the next morning. "Bernice, I've got your information on Mireya Morrison. We need to meet today." The urgency in her voice made my stomach drop. "What did you find?" "Not over the phone. Can you come to my office in an hour?" I drove there in a daze. What could be so serious that Sharon wouldn't discuss it on the phone? In Sharon's office, I sat across from her desk while she pulled up files on her computer. Her expression was grave. Bernice, Maria Morrison is not who she claims to be. My heart started pounding. What do you mean? Sharon turned her laptop screen toward me. Her real name is Maria Morrison, yes, but that marketing job she told your son about? It lasted 3 months. She was fired for embezzlement. The word hit me like a physical blow. Embezzlement? Small amounts, taking money from petty cash, falsifying expense reports. The company didn't prosecute. They just terminated her and blacklisted her in the industry. Sharon clicked to another screen. After that, she worked for a real estate investment company, also fired, this time for forging client signatures on documents. I felt cold all over. Adrian doesn't know any of this. There's more. Sharon's voice was gentle but firm. She's in debt, significant debt. Credit cards maxed out, personal loans, even a payday loan she took out 3 months ago. Total, she owes over $67,000. $67,000, and she'd quit her job to start a business. One more thing. Sharon clicked to another file. I found evidence that Maria has been researching property law, specifically adverse possession and tenant rights. She's been looking into how long someone has to live in a property before they can claim ownership. The pieces clicked together in my mind like a lock opening. This wasn't about family drama. This wasn't about a difficult mother-in-law relationship. Mireya had been planning to steal my house. The isolation, I whispered, making sure I couldn't visit. The unpermitted renovations. She was trying to establish ownership. If she could keep me away long enough, keep Adrian under her control long enough. In some states, after 7 to 10 years, she might have grounds to claim adverse possession, Sharon confirmed. She'd need to prove continuous, exclusive use of the property. The renovations would help her case, showing she'd invested in it, maintained it, treated it as her own. My hands were shaking. She wasn't trying to drive me away because she didn't like me. She was trying to steal everything I've worked for. Sharon handed me a flash drive. Everything's on here. Documentation of her employment history, credit reports, the browser searches. It's all legal. Public records and information she posted on unsecured accounts. What do I do? You show your son the truth, Sharon said quietly. And you make absolutely certain that eviction goes through, because if they stay past those 30 days, removing them becomes exponentially harder. That evening I texted Adrian. Just him. Dinner tonight. Just you and me. It's important. Please come alone. He arrived at 6, looking weary and exhausted. I'd made pot roast, his favorite since childhood. We ate in tense silence. Then I put the folder on the table between us. I hired an investigator to look into Mireya's background. His face went white. You did what? Read it, please. I'm not going to. You had no right. Adrian. My voice was firm. Read it. He opened the folder. I watched his face as he went through page by page. The employment terminations, the embezzlement charges, the forged documents, the $67,000 in debt, the searches about property law and adverse possession. This can't be right, he whispered. Mireya told me she left those jobs because of toxic work environments. She said, she lied to you. No, but his voice lacked conviction. He kept staring at the papers. She's been planning this, Adrian. The isolation, the renovations without permits, the way she made you think of my house as yours. She was trying to establish a claim to my property. That's insane. Is it? Look at the evidence. Look at her debt. She needs money, Adrian, and she saw an opportunity. He stood up abruptly, pacing. You're wrong. You have to be wrong. Mireya loves me. I'm sure she does, I said quietly. But she also loves what you can give her. Stability, a house, a way out of her financial problems. I need to talk to her. He grabbed the folder. Adrian, wait! But he was already gone. I sat alone at my dinner table, the pot roast growing cold. I'd done it. I'd shown him the truth. Now I had to wait and see if he'd believe it. 3 hours later, my phone exploded with calls and texts. Adrian and Maria. Adrian again. I didn't answer. Then a text from Adrian. We need to talk. All 3 of us. Tomorrow. Please. I wrote back. My house. 10 a.m. And Adrian. I want the truth this time. The next morning they arrived separately. Adrian looked like he hadn't slept. His eyes were red-rimmed, his clothes rumpled. Maria looked cornered. Dangerous. Like an animal with nowhere left to run. We sat in my living room. I had copies of Sharon's report on the coffee table. Is it true? Adrian asked Maria. His voice was hollow, empty. The embezzlement, the firings, the debt. Maria's eyes flickered between us. Those reports are biased. The companies wanted scapegoats. I didn't do anything wrong. $67,000 in debt, Maria. Adrian's voice cracked. Were you ever going to tell me? I was handling it. By quitting your job? He stood up, started pacing. By spending money on renovations we couldn't afford? By researching how to steal my mother's house? That's not what I was doing. But her voice was too shrill, too defensive. I spoke quietly. You've been isolating Adrian from me, destroying my property, researching adverse possession. Tell me, Maria, what was your end game? She looked at me with pure, undiluted hatred. You've poisoned him against me, she hissed. You couldn't stand that he chose me, so you answer the question. Silence, heavy and damning. Then Adrian spoke. His voice was cold in a way I'd never heard before. Get out. Michael, get out of this house now. Maria looked between us, realizing she'd lost. The mask shattered completely. You'll regret this, she spat. Both of you will regret this. She stormed out, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the windows. After she left, Adrian collapsed onto my couch, his head in his hands. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. I'm so sorry, Mom, he finally whispered. I'm so sorry. I sat beside him, put my hand on his shoulder. I believed her, about everything. The jobs, the debt. His voice broke. God, the way she talked about you. I let her convince me that you were the problem, that you were controlling and manipulative. And all along she was very convincing, I said gently. That's not an excuse. He looked up at me, tears streaming down his face. You're my mother. You raised me alone. You worked 2 jobs to give me everything. And I chose her. I sent you that text telling you not to come to your own house for Christmas. What kind of son does that? One who is being manipulated by someone very skilled at it. He shook his head. I should have seen it. The way she'd answer your calls. The little comments she'd make about you. So subtle I thought I was imagining them. The way she'd get upset if I wanted to visit you. I told myself I was being a good husband, supporting my wife. But I was abandoning you. You're here now, I said quietly. I don't deserve your forgiveness. Maybe not, but you have it anyway. We sat together in silence. My son, my boy, back from wherever Mireya had taken him. What happens now? He asked. Now you move out of that house. The eviction stands. He nodded. I know. Mireya and I are done. I can't be with someone who would do this. Over the next 2 weeks, Adrian moved his belongings out. Mireya tried everything. Tears, rage, promises to change, even threats of suicide. But Adrian held firm. He filed for divorce. He moved into a small apartment across town. Mireya, meanwhile, refused to leave the house. She claimed tenant rights, screamed about how she'd lived there for 6 years. But Patricia Henderson was ready. We had documentation of everything. The unpermitted renovations, the property damage, the 30-day notice, the court filing. When the sheriff came to enforce the eviction, Mireya screamed from the doorway. This is my house. I've lived here for 6 years. You can't just throw me out. Ma'am, this property is owned by Bernice Hawthorne. You were given proper notice. You need to vacate now. She called me every terrible name imaginable, said I'd ruined her life. said I was a vindictive monster who destroyed her marriage because I couldn't let my son be happy. But in the end, she left. 2 weeks later, I received a letter from Maria's attorney. She was suing me for unjust enrichment, claiming she'd improved the property and deserved compensation for her renovations. I showed it to Patricia Henderson. Patricia actually laughed. She destroyed your property with unpermitted construction and now wants you to pay her for it? This will be dismissed so fast. And it was. The judge took one look at the documentation, the building code violations, the lack of permits, the property damage, and threw out Maria's lawsuit. Not only that, the judge ordered Maria to pay my attorney fees. She declared bankruptcy 3 months later. The house sold 6 months after that. I couldn't afford the $47,000 in repairs, so I sold it as is to a developer. I still made a profit. Not as much as I would have with a fully renovated property, but enough. Enough to secure my retirement. Enough to prove that standing up for myself had been worth it. 1 year later, my life had transformed in ways I never expected. Adrian came to dinner every Sunday. It became our tradition. He'd arrive at 5 with wine or dessert, and we'd cook together, talking about his week, his therapy sessions, his new life. With the money from the house sale, I finally took that trip to Japan I'd been dreaming about for decades. 3 weeks visiting temples, soaking in hot springs, eating food that made me close my eyes in bliss. I invested in my garden, built a greenhouse, started growing orchids and rare roses. I sold them at the farmer's market. People started calling me the Orchid Lady. Adrian started dating again. Eventually, he brought someone to meet me, Lauren Shaw, straightforward and kind. When she disagreed with Adrian about something, she said so clearly and respectfully. "Your mom is amazing," Lauren told Adrian over dinner. "Traveling to Japan alone at her age? That takes courage." "She's the strongest person I know," Adrian said, and the pride in his voice made my heart swell. On my 67th birthday, Adrian threw me a party in my garden. Dorothy came, and neighbors, and the women from my book club, and Lauren. Adrian stood and raised his glass. "To my mom," he said, "who taught me that love doesn't mean losing yourself, that boundaries aren't cruel, that protecting yourself is an act of courage." Everyone raised their glasses. I looked around at the photos on my walls. Me in Japan, me at the farmer's market, me and Adrian laughing, at the orchids blooming in my greenhouse, at the life I'd built, not despite standing up for myself, because of it. I got one final message from Maria 6 months ago. A social media DM. "I hope you're happy. You destroyed my life. You took everything from me, all because you couldn't stand to see your son happy. I hope it was worth it." I stared at that message for a long time. Then I blocked her and deleted it. Because Maria never understood. I hadn't destroyed her life. She'd done that herself, with her lies, her manipulation, her greed. I'd simply refused to be her victim. My phone rang. Adrian calling during his lunch break. "Hey, Mom, just wanted to hear your voice." "I'm here," I said, smiling. "I know. Love you." "Love you too, sweetheart." I looked around my living room, at the life I'd built, at the peace I'd found. This was what victory looked like. Not revenge, not schadenfreude at Maria's downfall, but peace, wholeness, a life lived on my own terms. Standing up for yourself isn't cruel. It's necessary. Love doesn't require you to accept mistreatment. And protecting what's yours, your boundaries, your dignity, your property, isn't selfishness. It's survival. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it gives you courage to stand up for yourself when you need it most. You deserve respect. Never forget that.